There was a period in my life where everything was moving. Not slowly, not cautiously, just forward. Schedules were full, the work was visible. The next thing was always lined up behind the last one. From the outside, it looked like progress. And in many ways, it was. I wasn't drifting, I wasn't lost. I was doing what I had set out to do. What I didn't question at the time was why I kept moving at that pace. See, momentum has a way of convincing you that it's enough. As long as things are advancing, you assume you're headed somewhere that matters. You don't stop to examine it too closely because stopping would interrupt the motion. And motion can feel reassuring. There's a kind of validation that comes from being in demand, from being busy, from knowing that if you pause, something might be missed. That sense of importance can quietly replace clarity. I didn't feel conflicted, I felt committed. And that distinction matters. Commitment usually sounds noble. It suggests discipline, follow-through, professionalism. But commitment without reflection can turn into something else. It can become habit, dressed up as purpose. I remember realizing, not all at once, but in pieces, that I was saying yes automatically. Not because each thing mattered on its own, but because saying yes had become the structure of my life. There's a point where momentum stops asking questions and it just keeps going. The problem isn't movement. The problem is when movement becomes the answer to every discomfort. When forward motion replaces discernment, when speed becomes proof that you're on the right path. I didn't feel unhappy. It was actually a great time, and that's what made it harder to notice. Nothing was wrong enough to demand change, and when nothing is wrong, it's easy to assume everything is right. But there's a difference between building something and maintaining motion. One requires attention, the other only requires endurance. At some point I noticed that the quiet moments felt unfamiliar, not uncomfortable exactly, just empty in a way that surprised me, as if the noise had been doing more work than I realized. That's when it became clear that momentum by itself doesn't tell you what matters. It only tells you that something is happening. Meaning doesn't announce itself through speed, it shows up when things slow down enough for you to feel what's actually landing. That doesn't mean walking away from effort or ambition, it means choosing direction intentionally instead of letting inertia decide for you. I didn't abandon the work. I questioned the pace. I didn't step out of life, I stepped back, just enough to ask whether the direction still fit. That adjustment wasn't dramatic, it came with a single defining moment. It came with smaller decisions. Declining things that once felt automatic, creating space where there used to be none. Momentum will always be available. There will always be another opportunity, another obligation, another reason to keep going. Meaning requires something else. It asks you to notice what still feels alive beneath the movement. It asks you to listen for what isn't being drowned out by progress. You can move forward without letting motion lead. And when you do, the work changes. Not in how it looks, but in how it feels to carry. Your destiny is waiting.